I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my car, never see the receipt. Good health, we prize, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the Livbtr podcast. This is your host, Jay Ciano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just wanna have peace.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Livbtr podcast. Today's guest is Lukas Pakter, and I have a pretty funny story about how Lukas and I met. So I am a former ZBT at the University of Arizona. I was visiting with a crew of 50 people from our classes when I went to school. And Lukas was the president of University of Arizona's ZBT chapter. I was at an HPLT event a few months back in Austin, Texas, and somebody taps me on the shoulder. And who is that person? It's Lukas Pakter. And I learned a lot about his entrepreneurial lifestyle, as well as his interest in the fitness and healthy lifestyle space. So on today's episode, we discuss all things creator, all things entrepreneurship with his company, SquidHouse, which I'm excited to discuss. Welcome to the show, Lukas Pakter.
Oh yeah, good to be here. I remember meeting you. It was only like probably about a year and a half ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago. Honestly, life moves fast. But yeah, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Yeah. So we met when I was back with a bunch of my fraternity class members, essentially, and we were back for. We try to get back periodically. I'd say every like 2-3 years. And you were kind enough to welcome us into the new house. I mean, our house is now a like 12-story apartment complex or something of that nature. So let's just talk about that for a second. Let's just dive in from there. So you were president of ZBT when we first met.
I was young, very young, a sophomore. Kind of came into it like not your typical fraternity president story. It was more. I feel like most of the time it's half of a popularity contest, half of a qualification, half popularity, half qualifications, right?
Yeah.
What happened was during COVID, everything was just falling apart. No one was paying their dues, and nobody wanted to run for president because you get all the negatives plus more. Now you're on everybody's ass from the start, but now you have a ton of kids who aren't participating. Don't want to live in because there's a ton of rules and regulations by the school. We can't throw any parties. So you have all the negatives plus more minus all the positives.
Yeah.
No one wanted to run. And I was kind of like, well, I'll do it. That sounds fun. My thought process behind it was like, if I can get us through the first half of the year, then I'm assuming I was betting that COVID was going to be over by my second half of my term. And then it was going to be a ton of fun, one big party again, right? But, anyone who's been in Greek life knows that, from the outside looking in, president sounds like this glorified position. In reality, it's like 99% work, being woken up at 4 a.m. when the cops are at your front door and no one knows what to do because they're all hammered. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it was definitely a very valuable experience, very rewarding. I feel like I learned just as much from that as I have from running multiple businesses. So
yeah, I'm always impressed with young people who take the initiative to take on a position like that. Our presidents have all gone on to be very successful in business and life. And I think, again, just, raising your hand to take on that role is not an easy thing to do. And it says a lot about your character and your drive. So fast forward from there, you and I are randomly hanging out at the same HPLT event in Austin about maybe 3 months ago. And that's how we reconnected, right? I mean, we've kind of seen each other online and, social, all the things, but we just randomly bumped into each other, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. And that was awesome too, because I mean, I had just moved here like 2 months prior, and I was getting lunch with these two guys who were also in town. Met them through social media too. Everyone, social media is like the greatest networking platform ever created, obviously. But I was getting lunch with them, and then they're like, "Yo, we're going to this little, what was it, seminar? You would say?
Yeah.
Seminar, yeah, little seminar. It's private. I don't know if I was supposed to have an invite or not, but they're like, yo, you should just show up. It's gonna be really cool. Our friend is speaking there, so yeah,
Who
pulled
who
up.
was their friend speaking?
It was the big Twitter guy. I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was one of the last.
Cahill?
What was it again?
Sahil Bloom?
Yes, that's him.
Yeah, yeah.
The
Great guy.
the time billionaire guy.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
he
Great
was
guy.
great. He was great. I thought that was really valuable being there. I'm glad I went. Obviously, I saw you. You have like the most distinct and recognizable beard out of anyone I've ever seen. So I was like, right away,
It's the
noticed.
only reason I keep it, to be honest.
It's
Like
awesome.
I feel like it's really important. Like when you walk into a room, like it's like that whole peacocking concept, right? Like people take they're just aware that you're there. I think. And by the way, when we first met, you had
I was about
bleached
to say
blonde hair,
bleached mohawk. Yeah, the
mohawk.
brohawk they called it. And yeah, people thought that was like absolutely ridiculous when I first pulled up with that halfway through my term. But my thought was like, yeah, it's rush season around the corner. You got to make an impression, and like, what's more recognizable than a bleached mohawk, you know? So
I love it.
I don't know what you guys thought of that when you first saw me, but
I
I was like,
liked it, man. Well,
aesthetic.
I listen. I change my hair color and cut pretty frequently, and I think it's great. So walk me through. Obviously, we you leave Arizona, you go. Let's get into the business side of things. So I've been following along on your entrepreneurial journey, and congratulations on your success. It's not easy to start anything from scratch. So talk to us about what you're doing.
So appreciate that, by the way. Yeah, I've always been a little entrepreneur since birth. Lots of startups, lots of failures, lots of lessons, and I think end of junior year of college, I was just pretty much done with college. Like went to U of A, big party school, but I was like, this is got to focus on something else.
So,
And
so you didn't graduate; you just bounced.
no, I did graduate. I
You
wanted
did.
to drop out. My parents made me stick through it, but I felt really guilty having them pay for it and me not showing up to class because I definitely was like, I'm not gonna. I didn't show up to class at all senior year. I focused on the business, but I paid for my college senior year because I felt bad about them spending the money. But I was
Wow.
like, you know what? I don't really need that piece of paper at the end, but just to make them sleep a little better at night, like I'll get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, started this business at the end of junior year. That's when like the idea for it started. Pretty simple. It was like, I think a lot of people think you have to change the world with some big tech idea, and maybe, that'll happen later on. I have a lot of ideas that I want to work on, but it was pretty much like, I don't like the workout clothes I see on the market. I'm going to make my own, and started with shorts. Pretty simple story, garage band business. Started with my cousin. We both put like $5,000 in, ordered our first bulk order, sold it to all of our friends at that point. Had a little bit of money to actually start a real business. And then, yeah, went from there, and I started making TikTok content. That was my first platform around the same time because I was like, I'm going to document this journey because I feel like so many people talk about their journey after they're successful, which is
Yeah.
great, really insightful, but no one really like takes you through the ups and downs, right? The struggles and the successes of the actual process. And just yesterday I posted a video about how, a month ago we're sitting very cash positive, everything's going great, a lot of money in the bank. But like that doesn't necessarily mean your business is going well. You know what I mean? And then,
Unfortunately, I do, Lucas.
yeah, as of today, or as of yesterday, like that money's way down. We're actually a little bit in debt right now, but we have a ton of new stuff on the way. So I was just trying to make a video taking people through, what it's like being an entrepreneur, at least a young one. So I enjoy that.
The highs and lows. No, I don't think it's necessarily a young one. I think, speaking for myself, I have multiple businesses, and my core business, Saber's 13 years old. And, I was on a team meeting this morning where I'm listening to the KPIs where we are with our goals, and you always think you're like, finally, we're out of the woods. It's 13 years. We're doing, we have a very nice top line revenue that's pretty consistent annually, and growing. Seriously declined in COVID, and then finally back above 2019 numbers and growing. And I listened to a call with my team where we're going through things, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is not as rosy a picture as I would have expected and wanted, right? So it's like, I feel like you're never out of the woods, like you're just always, it ebbs and flows so much.
Well, the problems get bigger. I think the problems get bigger, and I think you get more capable as a person to handling them. But that's what's most fun. I think you can almost treat business like a video game. And I don't know about yourself, but I originally wanted to be an entrepreneur. I think most people did because of money, right? I need to start a business and then I'll be rich one day. That's what every kid is thinking.
Yeah.
But now it's at the point where like the amount of money I'm paying myself doesn't matter at all. The only thing that matters is the business growing. And in that respect, I treat it like a video game. It's like I actually, I do get to like pick my quests and choose my time on how I want to spend it towards certain challenges. And I can take on a couple challenges at a time, and that'll level up my character, my business faster, but it might be a little harder, more challenging. So it's fun.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I think for myself, at your age, it was more ego driven. It was more like having control, being able to say like, I did this, this is my thing. I'm important, I'm wealthy, I'm important, I'm all these things. And then, similarly to what you said, it kind of becomes, you start to realize early on that you're making all the sacrifices. You're like, wait a minute, I started this so I could be rich and powerful and all those things. And wait a minute, like I need to pay everybody else before I pay myself. I'm actually, I bought myself a job and I'm making less money than I would if I was going to work for somebody else. So that adjustment, for sure is an interesting one. And I think that being an entrepreneur is glamorized, and it's not, it's like the new rapper. Like right. I mean, so much so in the whole kind of hustle culture, Gary Vaynerchuk, world where it's just like you could make a great living selling Smurf memorabilia, like, yeah, but is that really a good idea? Is that how you want to spend the rest of your life? So I just, it's important, I think, for people to realize that it's a lot more difficult than it seems. And you said that, and I truly believe that.
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Actually, this is a topic that's been on my mind a lot. And I heard someone talk about it the other day. You're 100% right. Being an entrepreneur it's almost like a trend right now, right? So many kids see all this. There's so much content coming at you from guys like yourself, guys like me, like you need to do this. This is how you life max, as some people call it. This is how you make your life the best. You can't work a job. You need to start a business, right? But there's a lot of young people out there my age and around that are doing a different type of entrepreneurship. They're not really like building anything, at least in terms of an asset. It's a lot of like quick internet money, in my opinion.
Sure.
They don't necessarily have like a job, but it's, some sort of like SMMA agency or managing, private communities for people. Like there's so many new ways to make money with this growing creator economy. And I feel like a lot of our young, ambitious, bright minds are putting their time towards what I call quick money. Making 100, 150K a month when you're young, which sounds awesome, but they're not really building anything that's valuable long-term. I'm curious your opinion on that. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I have a much more, mature kind of perspective because I am in my late 40s, but I act like I'm in my mid 20s, and I have friends that run, I would say from college kids all the way up to, people in their 70s, right? And I love that. That's kind of what makes these conversations super interesting, because I'm taking the perspective of all of those different types of people that have built significant businesses before the internet existed, all the way down to what you're describing as people who are really, able to leverage the power of, using digital platforms and technology in a way that quite frankly, I don't even understand fully. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's kind of like, I feel like it's important for me to build businesses that have that traditional, okay, well, I could sell this thing because I have X amount of people and we generate Y, and it's a multiple of, of our EBITDA, and so on and so forth. Right. So, and I also have a business brokerage. So I actually analyze businesses and sell businesses. So I have an interesting perspective on that, but it doesn't mean that there's not value to, businesses that you're describing. It just means, I think a lot of people, if you remove me from my company, Sabre still has a value.
Yeah.
Right. We have a pipeline, we have accounts, we have things that are sellable beyond like the IP.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remove somebody like you're describing from the business, is it really worth anything? Right? Is there, or is it, solopreneurship, where you're just, you're essentially, working for yourself, but there's nothing bigger than you.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I also think, and so I'll let us move on to the next topic in a second, but I fully agree with that. I also think, like, just in terms of distraction, making a lot of money when you're young isn't necessarily like winning. You know what I mean? Like, for example, the paid community type thing. That's a huge thing right now for young people my age, right? Paid communities, right? You pay to join this young entrepreneur like me, $50 a month, and you get to join my Discord or my school program, whatever, that new company school, and then you get all this value. And I know for myself, with my audience, like, I could create a paid community and potentially make like $250,000 a month off of subscriptions, but that would take away so much time and energy from not only like the main asset I'm building, which is my personal brand and my business, but also I feel like it also cheapens your brand a little bit by becoming that guy. Like, it's quick money, you can make it, you can scale very fast, but I don't know how far you can grow it. You know what I mean? So that's where I do.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too, because I know a lot of people that it's funny because my core competency is taking businesses that have a brick and mortar location, or multiple brick and mortar locations, designing a rollout strategy for the whole country and scaling the hell out of it. Right. So, and most of the businesses that I focus on in the, fitness, wellness, world are membership model businesses that have an EFT component to it, whether it's a gym, group fitness, a massage, Dry Bar's founders have a massage concept that's our client called Squeeze. They're all monthly membership, and I'm fascinated. I've always been fascinated by that business. I love the recurring income, recurring revenue. And I think that, what's interesting is I think about that stuff too, because, I've scaled Chipotle and Starbucks and Orange Theory Fitness from their first location and European Wax Center from their second location. And, my expertise and my track record and resume, there's like few people in the world that have it in a humble way. So I could teach people what I do in a very meaningful way. First off, I don't know how many people would actually want to learn what I do and actually do it themselves, again, at scale, right? But, do I focus on developing my personal brand more and have that type of offering to add another line of revenue, for myself as a business? Or do I just keep doing what I do, go out and find, the big clients and do that? I'm not as concerned about it cheapening me because I'm already a legitimate business person.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So I have a 23-year track record in commercial real estate. Me selling a course is not going to be like, oh, that guy's a snake oil salesman.
100%.
Yeah. So I think it depends where you're at,
Yeah.
But tell me about your brand. Tell me, I want to hear more about the clothing.
Sure. So I started this company, SquidTalkPodcast, like I said, in college. And the goal behind it I would never consider myself trying to, copy another brand strategy. But if there were a way to make it as easy as possible to describe, I want to do what Lululemon did with those young, ambitious women in the early 2000s.
Vertically integrated. Did you read Black Stretchy Pants?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Great book.
Great.
And I'm a huge fan of what he did at the beginning. I know he's no longer too involved in Lulu, but I think
he could afford not to be.
Huh?
He could afford not to be.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I think about that a lot, honestly, being like pushed out as a founder later on.
It's funny because I have a lot of clients that, have been through journeys like that. And it's interesting, I'm like an advisor to them outside of the business scaling. I become like their, consigliere, their right-hand person. So I'm watching them deal with like the emotions of, even if they elect to sell, like what happens when your identity is removed from this big brand that's a household name and you made, 9 figures, but all of a sudden you're like, what do I do now?
No,
it's an interesting process.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, I think that's a fascinating story. I loved that book. And I got a lot of value from it. But essentially what I'm trying to do is build this company, SquidHoss, that's a core community of young, ambitious men. So obviously I want to get into female apparel as well in the future, just like Lulu did with guys. But, their core audience was this boss girl in the early 2000s, right? When they were really starting to differentiate themselves, go out on their own, get these high paying jobs. And so for me, because my whole personal brand is built on building yourself as a person and as not only an entrepreneur, but similar to what you're doing here, but, all around, like, how do I become the best person possible? How do I life max? Once again, that term.
It's funny. I never heard life max. Like,
well,
I'm surprised.
It's kind of a new term. It just came out of nowhere, honestly. But the guy I interviewed on my podcast like a week ago said it. I said, that's a great term.
It's a great term.
Everything, right? And so my whole page is actually not very much about my business. I would say my business maybe makes up 5 to 10% of the content. And most of it is just like me as an entrepreneur. What are my little tips and tricks? I treat it as like a journal, but video form. How can I talk to myself a year ago and give him some advice so that he doesn't make the same mistakes I did, right? But for everybody else. Yeah. And, so I have this very cult-like community on TikTok of like young, ambitious guys that just want to like do better and like be good people and start things that they're proud of. And I figure fitness and athletics is quite possibly the easiest first step for anyone who doesn't know how to start, right? So I thought, like, what better? A lot of people ask me, like, why don't you go in tech or real estate or whatever? And maybe I'll do that eventually. But yeah, fitness is step one if you don't know where to start. And so, I have this core group of guys that are really dedicated to getting better. And I wanted to create a line of products that would fill that need. And so, what we're trying to do is essentially build like a really high quality, but trendy athletic clothing brand for men. Started with lifting gear. Now we're doing running gear, fighting gear soon, golf gear. And honestly, I was the one designing all the products and everything at first. I had no idea what I was doing with anything design and product creation related. So the fact that it did pretty well in its first year on my shoulders is something I'm very not surprised, but I'm very happy it did so well with just my creative expertise, because it's kind of shocking. So I'm really happy now that I can really focus on bringing new people onto the team and let them do what they were made to do. That's what I enjoy most about it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that as a founder, your goal is to fire yourself from every position at the company, right? And I feel like I'm actually close to doing that with my businesses, which is it's interesting because I basically I'll sit in a leadership meeting now, and when I used to be talking 75% of the time and talking about, well, this is what we're doing, this is what we need to be doing, this is everything, and now I'm in those meetings and everybody's talking and I'm looking at everybody, I'm do you guys need me for anything? It's like, you actually start to, it's funny, like it's a goal, but when it starts happening, you're like, wait a minute, like, don't you guys need me? It's funny. It's a funny transition.
I can imagine. And I feel like that is the goal. Definitely. I feel like a lot of people think of the term leader and they hear in their mind manager, right? How do you micromanage people, tell them what to do? But my whole goal right now in my own business is actually like picking the perfect people for the right job and then almost encouraging them to tell me what to do. Like, what do
Yeah.
I need? What do you need? And instead of me saying, hey, I need you to do this, like, what do you need from me in order for you to be able to do this the best way? Like, I hate micromanaging. I hate telling people what to do. So I want to get the right guys on the team and just give them full creative freedom, allow them to make mistakes. I think that's really important, which was a hard thing for me to get over at the beginning, because as a founder, it's your baby. You think you can do everything right. But a rule I've tried applying is if I can find someone that can do something like 70% as good as me or better, give them the reins, and just allow them to do their job, and you'll be in the back seat if they need help.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I would agree with that. So, again, since the ethos of Squid House is essentially to better every area of your life, and that is the theme of this podcast, can you walk me through maybe positive changes that you've made, or, things that you think about on a daily basis, your non-negotiables, your routine, just how to keep in the best mental and physical fitness possible? Can you share some tips?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many different ways to be successful. And I'm sure you've met a ton of different entrepreneurs and high achievers that are everywhere on the spectrum, from like really relaxed and laid back to, Goggins type discipline. And so there really is like no, in my mind, one way to get your life on track. But, some things, I had this amazing guy on my podcast 2 weeks ago, and I asked him the same question, kind of like, what is success to you? And he said, going to bed and being able to close your eyes right away and fall asleep at peace, knowing you're doing everything you can to get better and you haven't wronged anyone. So no one is lingering in your mind. That's part one. Part two would be being able to go to bed and being excited to wake up tomorrow, right? So many people, the second their day ends, they're happy to hit the bed to go to sleep, but they're just really not excited to wake up tomorrow and go to that job that you hate and work under that asshole that doesn't respect you, doesn't treat you how you feel you should be treated. So being able to go to bed excited about the next day is really important. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur. I think whatever you're doing in life, if you can find that job or that profession where you can feel that way, then that's what's most important, more important than any amount of money. And then the third part is like, if you can look yourself in the mirror every day when you wake up and just be really pleased with what you're seeing, not just physically, obviously, how jacked you are, clear your skin is, or how your hair looks, but like, do you see someone that you're really proud of? I think if you have those three things, then you're going to be the most fulfilled you've ever been, right?
Yep.
And so that's what I've been working towards, and I think I'm there, and I'm very happy about that, because it used to not be that way, but that's what making the most, living better is to me, essentially.
Yeah, listen, I feel like you kind of stole my thoughts, and I've been working really hard at those things for a long time because, again, when I'm very, I have to say before I continue on, that I'm just impressed with your maturity and your life experience at your age, because I don't think that I was even close to thinking about the things that you're thinking about, which is, I think, a testament to, the opportunity that younger people have also, right? Like you don't really, it's pretty amazing that you're able to, you have so much access to information and people, right? And I think, to your point earlier, like social media, for somebody at my age, I'm so active in social media because I find amazing accountability partners and like a real tribe of people that live the same way, right? That actually like want to collaborate and add value to you, as opposed to in the real world where it's more competitive and people are backstabbing. And I obviously live in both, but it's really amazing how, people like yourself and myself find like-minded people where in a way I feel like I'm talking into a mirror about, all of the things that are success and fulfillment and peace. And, how do you get up and attack the day and hopefully be a little bit better today and tomorrow than you were, yesterday or today.
Yeah, man, perfectly said. And first of all, I appreciate that. Those are very kind words. And I just I'm I feel very lucky and very grateful that I was born today because, like you just said, perfectly said, like, I don't think you had podcasts when you were growing up, or there were books, but you weren't able to really just like DM someone and ask them for advice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And not everyone's going to respond, obviously, but I know here's another thing to add to your question from a second ago. When I was in college, when you first met me, I mean, like from a outside perspective, it looked very elegant, right? I was the president. I really enjoyed that. But then I finished my term. I had a year and a half left. I was working on the business. I had like over 100 really good friends. But at the same time, I also felt very isolated and lonely because there just really weren't that many people like doing anything near what I was doing, right? No one was starting a business. No one was on social media. Like no one really talked shit to my face, but I definitely was probably ostracized behind the scenes. Like, what is bro doing on social media? Like making these TikToks, I'm sure it happened.
Oh
And
yeah.
so,
By the way, I know the feeling. Imagine that, somebody at my age doing it, in a very traditional industry like commercial real estate. When I started doing it in like 2015, going all in on social and having a weekly vlog and a videographer and all those things, people were like, it actually made it more fun to me because like I enjoyed the fact that nobody like got it and they were like, who's this guy think he is? That was fun. And and I still get it, I'm sure. I don't even pay attention enough to know if I do or don't because
yeah.
it's so irrelevant. It's done so many positive things for my life in every area of my life that it's irrelevant. But it's funny now because I think the biggest naysayers, some of them, are the ones that are now doing it and are just so far behind.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that actually, because my, my like mentor, you could say, he was a friend of my dad's. I lived with him in LA for a couple summers, worked for him. He was in commercial real estate too. And this past summer, I didn't work for him, but he let me stay at his house, which was really nice of him. But my job was me talking to my phone all day. And he kicked me out of his house at the end of the summer and was like, Lucas, you're not doing anything with your life. You're living off me. Like, get your shit together. And I was completely taken back when he called me on the phone and said this, because I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, my business is ripping right now. Like, my following is growing. Like, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm happier than I've ever, like, he pretty much like called me a loser on the phone, but I'm like, dude, everything is going really well right now. He just didn't understand at all that you could make money and have a career like talking. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
of course.
So yeah, it's a very old fashioned industry, but but you've added, yeah, a very creative new aspect to it, which I really respect, by the way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But most traditional, people and people my age and older, just don't get it, and that's okay. But they're gonna have their children are gonna come into the business, and this stuff is obviously like it's impossible to avoid at this point because I always say it's shaking hands at scale. Like
Yeah.
I could just put a video out into the universe and the amount of people that are going to see that and interact with that are way more than, any hands I could actually shake. And I've always believed in business that, that generating attention means that your business is going to grow on some level. It's not a negative thing, right? So, you want to be top of mind. You want to be, front and center. You want people to know, like when they think about, oh, who can I for this? And it's like, oh, boom, Jay. Oh, boom, Luke. Like that's a positive thing every day. Like there is no way that that's ever going to hurt. Marketing has always, marketing and sales are equally important. And a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people in business, think that sales is way more important than marketing. And they obviously go hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of just circling back to what I was saying earlier about the whole like isolating environment in college, even though I had lots of friends, even though I'm entrepreneur first, and that's really important to me, that's like what I'm known for. I can totally say without a doubt, like clicking the record button was the best decision I ever made, because not only has it, attributed a lot in terms of sales to my business and my personal brand, but just like the people I've met, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to meet people when you are one of the only ones like willing to put yourself out there. I look at it as like everyone's sitting in a big pit together, everyone's eye level. But if you stand up on that like box or that crate, everyone's going to see you. All the ones that are going to, half those people are going to throw rocks and sticks at you. And then half those people are going to be like, wait a minute, like I kind of like it up there too. And then they're going to reach out and they're going to contact you. So, you're putting yourself in harm's way by making content, whatever you want to call it, being a creator, but you're also just increasing the opportunity to network like crazy.
You're also generating, like you said, this resilience, like I think it's all part of the process. And I think even the negative things become positive, for you in your life, right? Like I was asked by a big client of mine and a friend to marry her and her husband this weekend in Miami. The
Wow.
fact that I'll jump on stage and talk about what I do for a living, or I'll be on podcasts in person and, and like this digitally, and I just do that all day, every day. If somebody asks me to do something that's like, interesting and unique, it's like, I kind of talk for a living, and it's, I don't really have to have so much preparation to go and marry somebody, which I never thought I would be doing. But
that's crazy.
It's
so good though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm honored that they asked me, and but it's one of those things. The more, the more used to seeing yourself, right? Like, I mean, I've changed so much just as a result of seeing myself on video, on playback stuff, where I'm like, oh, that's what I look like that. That's how overweight I am. That's how hungover I was that day. That's how, and boom, all of a sudden, like, I've really like been able to dial in every aspect of my life and become the best version of myself. Now I'm not like there. I haven't like, I'm not done, but I mean, the difference that doing these things has made for me, like it's undeniable. It's insane. Like I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm the most mentally strong and resilient I've ever been. And I really have a lot I mean, social media and the people. You'll also, I mean, I think an important point here is that you'll never be ridiculed by people that are further along than you.
Never.
Ever.
They just don't
Right?
care.
No, they're like proud of you. They're
energy.
rooting for you.
There's no negative energy that like shitting on someone or criticizing someone takes energy. And I feel like anyone who's doing better than you knows that you can't expense energy like that. Like it would not do you any good. It wouldn't propel you forward to try and drag somebody down. I love that quote, right? You'll never get criticized by anyone doing more than you. But I think on your point of social media, most people never do any self-reflection whatsoever. They're completely oblivious to the fact that, they're not living better, right? But you don't have to be famous on social media or have a big following to, be able to look at yourself and really have that self-reflection. I think it's very therapeutic, just like journaling is, but it gives you like a third perspective on yourself. So I get just as much out of it personally from clicking the record button and making content as anyone watching my content does. Like I've I've gotten better at speaking. I've learned more about myself. I've gotten over personal traumas by talking about them on TikTok, right? I've become more
Yeah.
confident, and I've even like talking about like my big failures, or even something as simple as like, my content's not only about business, but for example, getting in a bad breakup, being cheated on, right? Sending a really embarrassing text to a girl that resulted in, oh, that's the end of that. Like, you talking about it and saying it out loud and putting it out to the world allows you to move on. You're kind of like getting rid of it. You know what I mean? So it's been
Totally.
very therapeutic.
You help yourself and you're helping others at the same time, and I think that most people really live in fear of other people's opinions, and early on when you hit record for the first time, I'm sure for you it was scary too, where you're like, what the hell is, my mom gonna think about this? What is,
She would come into my room and be like, "What are you doing, dude? Who are you talking to?"
Yeah,
She'd come into my room, "Who are
exactly.
you talking to now?" And when I heard the door open, I put my phone down because I was so afraid of somebody seeing me.
Right. You
Oh,
feel
I'll
like you're
make
doing
it
something
totally
wrong.
don't care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean that's a beautiful thing. Like that growth alone, right? Like being able to walk down the street anywhere and like pull out your phone, not care who's around you, and say whatever the hell's on your mind and not think about it, just off the cuff and just go boop and push it into the universe. And it's funny because if you and I weren't on social, like I wouldn't have even thought to have you on the podcast, because when we connected, we exchanged Instagrams. I've been following along, right? So I see what you're doing. I like what you're doing. I want to help you however I can. And that's what this is about, right? Like if you weren't creating content, like you would not be top of mind to me ever. But the stories that you're telling, I know them already, bro. Like that's the funny part. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? I know about your, yeah, I'm just so you guys all know, I'm totally scamming you by drop shipping, and you know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
landing from Vegas last Thursday, and like I opened my phone when I got off the plane. You were the first person there popping up, and that was it. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to be with him on the pod,
Awesome.
next week. It's crazy. People who don't do this stuff could never imagine, like the fact that, again, like you were able to be on the top of my mind, right? Like just last week at random, I used to literally wait for holidays. Like I would wait for any holiday to write formal cards out to people in business that either I've done business with or want to do business with. Talk about old school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just so I could be on top of their mind, right? I would be waiting for that next holiday, waiting for a birthday, waiting for something. Why wait? You could do this shit 24/7. It's like, it's crazy, man. Like people who don't, it's funny. I used to go in on this rant where it's like, if you don't create content, if you're in business and you don't create content on some level, you don't love your family.
It's interesting you say that because I remember I got in this big fight with my mom one time. Like, I think it's the only time I've ever like raised my voice to my mom, and I feel bad about it actually. But we were getting in a big argument because social media comes with a lot of criticism, right?
Of course.
And my mom was on the phone, like, there was this girl at my college that tried to cancel me, and she wrote this article about me, completely made I don't know if you ever heard about this, but
No.
yeah, this girl hits me up. She's like student journalist, and she's like, "Hey, I love your story. I love what you're doing for young guys. Let's get coffee, and I want to write a piece about you." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome, right?" So we have a great conversation for an hour, and then the article comes out, and it literally calls me in the middle of the article. It says Lukas Pakter, comma, who many refer to, this is not true by the way, as the new Andrew Tate, comma, a man accused of human sex trafficking, comma, blah blah blah. Right, so
What?
makes up a shit ton of stuff in it, uses it as like her boost to fame. And what ended up happening was like my audience went crazy on her. They were like, "Yo, Lukas is a great guy." All the people in my college who knew me were like, "Lukas is a great guy. This is fucked up." And they kind of like just like really put her down for it. But it created an even bigger storm, and my family got really upset. They're like, "You're bringing all this negative attention to the family." And then my mom said this one thing. She goes, do you even care that this is negatively, she said, do you even care that this is negatively affecting the family? And I remember I I was so emotional and mad. I like yelled back over on the phone. I said, Mom, I'm doing this for the family. Like, I'm trying to put this family on the map. Like, I want this last name to be known because I want to do something big. Like, I want to have a really big impact and inspire a lot of people. And that's not going to happen easily. There's no way to do that perfectly. Like, there's going to be controversy. There's going to be people with differing opinions, you know?
Totally.
And now
That's profound.
yeah. And now my parents totally understand. They totally.
It's amazing. I mean, you know, and it's funny because like when I started doing this, my wife would, you know, look at me like I was out of my mind. Meanwhile, I'm like, you know, listen, it's not easy to grow the type of business that I'm growing. And before I started using social media, Lucas, my company only existed in New York Metro. In the last 12 months, we've done deals in 46 states, bro. Like
wow.
100% because of the social media impact of me getting on a plane on my vlog and being in Arizona, being in California, being in Dallas, being all over the country and doing business in places and meeting with people in places and then pushing it out, because I was always pigeonholed as this person who only did business in this very small part of the world. And like that was, I knew that would have a profound impact on the growth of my company, which will in turn generate more business, close more deals, and make me more money so I can provide more for my family. It was that simple to me. But my wife didn't see that. Like, how could she see that? You know, like in the beginning, it's like, you're on there to get attention, to like try to be famous. No, I'm on there trying to get more money so I could support the family. Like, you know, and it's not easy.
It's not, but there's another famous quote, and I'm probably botching it, but it pretty much says like you have to disappoint your family in order to win them over in the long run. And I used to be so angry and frustrated with like the lack of support from those around me. But I thought that it was coming from a place of like not wanting to see me succeed. Correct. But in reality, this took like a lot of maturing to understand, but in reality, whenever someone is like not supporting you, you could say it's usually not because they don't want to see you succeed. It's more like they love you and they don't want to see you get hurt. Totally. And you have to get hurt. You have to risk failure in order to get to the next level. And so for me, when my parents were not supportive, it wasn't because they're like, we don't want to see you do well. It's more like, damn, a lot of people are saying bad stuff about my son on the internet. Like, this is scary. Like, it was just out of love. And
100% out of love and protecting you. That's their job, right? So 100%. Like, you know, it's interesting because that's interesting perspective, I think, for anybody who does do it and has kind of come through that, you know, and evolved into, you know, understanding what comes with the territory, obviously, and how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. But as, you know, people that are thinking about doing what you and I are talking about, you know, have to understand that, you know, it comes with that stuff. It's not all cupcakes and rainbows. You know, you're going to read something, you're going to see something that, you know, that sets you off, that, you know, makes you sad or makes you mad, or, you know, it's inevitable. But, you know, you have to realize that the people that are attacking you on any level, it has more to do with them than it does you. And once you start to process that, you know, you really, you can get through any of that.
Yeah, you can't take any of it personally, and you know, and nobody is all loved either. That's the thing. It's like even the people in the world that I look at that deserve the most respect, they usually have the most amount of hate too. Whether it's a guy like, I don't know what you think of these guys, but whether it's a guy like Elon Musk or Tom Brady or Dave Portnoy, like they have crazy powerful influence and they have so many fans, but they also have huge amounts of enemies that just would love to see them burn, right?
It's interesting because, you know, people will say that you have to have a firm position on things. If you truly, really want to be, you know, big, right? Like, you have to have an opinion. You can't just, you know, and oftentimes I struggle with that. I don't go heavy into an opinion on something, I'm just more talking about the facts or talking about the process or talking about, I'm not saying something where I'm like, shit, this could really upset my biggest client.
Yeah.
Like you have to be careful about that. But the people, the ones you just mentioned are not careful about it. And you either love them or you hate them. And that's how they become really, really powerful, right? You know exactly how all of those folks that you mentioned feel about specific things. They're not like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to offend somebody. Let me think about how to respond to this question.
Yeah. And I think the hate fuels more love, to be honest, as well, because you might be on the fence about someone, be like, yeah, he seems like a cool guy. Seems like I respect him, whatever. But then the second you see somebody that you hate is also hating on them, then you're like, all right, I like this guy a little more now.
That's
so it
right.
creates an even more, valuable community, I would say, valuable people behind you.
And negativity spreads a lot faster and furiously than positivity, right? So if you have negative things that are being said out there, you're gonna see it more, I think, right? Like, and to your point, you're gonna form your own opinion of like, wait a minute, like that's not, what he said doesn't deserve him to be like, completely ridiculed. I agree with what he said. Like, so you're right. You're gonna build an army that way.
100%. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm just trying to. I know I can't please everybody, and I know that I will definitely continue to rub some people the wrong way. But those people were never going to be a part of the tribe anyway, whatever you want to call it. So
yeah. Well, listen, keep up the great work, bro. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, which is just Lukas Pakter, TikTok, SquidPakter. And then I have a podcast as well, which I would love to get you on, by the way, Jay.
Yeah, would love it, man.
Lots of entrepreneurs, athletes. I just had a Navy SEAL on.
Which one?
Remy Adeleke.
You familiar with him? I know his mom.
His mom is a beast. Oh my god,
his mom is the best, dude. Yeah. I love her.
He's awesome. He's like the opposite of David Goggins in terms of his approach to success and happiness. But I just thought he was like such a genuine guy. And so yeah, pretty much Squid Talk Podcast, would love to have you on, but those are my socials. Awesome, and I appreciate you having me on this one.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure, and I'm really excited for you. I know that you're gonna do big things and have that impact that you're setting out to have. So we'll be able to look back as we both have our own journeys and keep in touch. We'll be able to look back at this and have a little timestamp in our lives, which is also a pretty cool thing about doing these things.
Oh yeah, gets me excited. But thank you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.